what we have on our plate. We have 2,300 high-rise buildings in this city. Many of them, most of them, way less efficient than they could or should be, and putting out probably about 10% of the city's emissions. So there's no way that we're going to get to our targets without tackling that, without tackling it in the social housing sector, without tackling it in the private sector. And so we really have to beaver away and get the technology, the financing, the policy, and the commitment, the arms and legs moving in the right direction. And what I can say from your little chart there about the incentives is that TAP is pulling together under the banner of our TowerWise program all the people who provide the incentives and the suppliers of the equipment, and we just have to all pull in the same direction on that one. And from the institutional buildings, the university has got actually a very interesting coordinated program to improve efficiency under the direction of the Sustainability Office. But imagine all the hospitals and all the libraries and all of these buildings. So there's a huge building boom in this city in the 50s and 60s. This is what makes Toronto and a place we'd like to live, but it's also way less efficient than it could and should be. So we have to focus on that. We also have to, when we look at the inventory, address transportation. I know we've been kind of buildings focused here, but a good 25%, pushing 30% of the greenhouse gas emissions in the city come from getting around. Going back and forth to work, going shopping, it's part of our everyday life, but we actually have to find a way to move ourselves around in a very different mode. And obviously, the public transit agenda is at the core of this, and we all have to support the streetcar purchase and Transit City, and we're going to, people have to get involved and get that right. I know there's issues with one of the lines up to the airport. Should it be electric? Lots of good questions and these projects only get better through public involvement. But the point is to pull in the direction of implementation. And one of the things that TAP is going to be taking on is the personal mobility. So we've got the big infrastructure on transit, but how do we all get around? Well, when you start adding up the numbers, there's a lot of interest in electric vehicles. And we're very interested in electric mobility. Two issues, fundamental issues. Number one, where does the electricity come from? If it's coal or nuclear, it's not clean electricity. You don't want nuclear-powered cars. And so what we have to do is actually go to a renewable energy system so that the cars that we do use, if they're electric, are actually clean-ish. The other point is do the math. If we're going to get to 80% reduction by 2050, we can't just replace every car on the road now, and with a growing city, even more cars on the road, and expect the city to work. We are going to have to halve or reduce by 3/4 the number of cars on the road. Now, obviously, that comes with a better transit system, etc. But that's the scale of the issue that we're dealing with. And at least we can try to manage it within the city of Toronto. Even that is challenging. And the third, which we have heard, a real priority is distributed energy. TAP is working very much on the solar thermal, and solar PV. We just launched the Solar Neighborhoods program in Ward 30. Which was a bit of a pilot where we have a big incentive program getting solar hot water panels on people's roofs. And the real work really was the permit system. So notwithstanding that council voted unanimously for ambitious greenhouse gas reduction targets, when you went to City Hall to get a permit for putting a panel on your roof, couldn't get one. There were plumbing issues, there were structural issues. Did you have an engineer's report that would say if your roof could hold it, etc., etc.? Was the wind going to blow it off, etc.? So we worked with City Hall. We have a very privileged position in that sense to actually go through the steps, get the engineer's report done on a generic basis so that when you took it into City Hall, it matched up with that. Get one permit rather than two permits. Get it down to $94 rather than the thousands it was going to be, so that there's kind of a one-window streamlined approach so that people like you can actually get these great distributed energy systems. And we're also going to be working a fair amount on cogeneration, which is a bit on the bigger side. So the key real message is that we need to do everything, and that means we need to reform policies, because there are policy barriers, a la permit, but that's not the only one. We need new technologies. It's not that we need only new technologies. There's existing technologies that are sitting on the shelf that aren't being used, but we definitely need to keep advancing the technology as well. We need some fundamental change in urban form, and the sort of transit infrastructure, housing infrastructure, density issues. We will be living, our city will look a lot different in 2050 than it does now in order to meet these low carbon targets. And we need to engage people, because it's about behaviors, but it's also about the political behaviors, not just what you do in your home, but who you call at City Hall when you need to actually sort of make this agenda go forward. So TAP is not a very public-faced organization. We don't, we're not, I'm used to working at World Wildlife Fund where, it's out there in the community. TAP isn't like that, but I think we're in some ways where we become more visible through our programs like Solar Neighborhoods and our involvement with city agencies. And so watch for our website when we have grant calls, because sometimes, as I say, the best ideas come from the community, from community organizations. We do work with businesses who have creative ideas in the city, even some of those way out wacko ones, because they do turn into solutions, and that's what we all need. So thanks, Olivia, for